In June, the Pentagon will issue a report to Congress on UFOs, thanks to a little-known stipulation in the December 2020 COVID stimulus bill signed by former President Donald J. Trump. Gideon Lewis Krause is a staff writer for The New Yorker. He has a new article out this week titled, "How the Pentagon Started Taking UFOs Seriously." Gideon, so good to see you. So, all right, so how do you explain the Pentagon sharing this, letting everyone know what they've got and what they're thinking?
That's a really good question. There are probably a lot of different answers to that. The simplest answer is probably that the government has always had people interested in UFOs as a phenomenon, either in a hobbyist capacity or because they thought there were potential national security implications. And in this case, what happened is that some of those people back in 2007 intersected with Harry Reid when he was the Senate Majority Leader, and he and the late Senators Stevens and Inouye put together a congressional earmark to look into this, to fund an outside contractor study. And then, what was a really small earmark, basically a rounding error in the Defense Department budget back then, eventually caught the eye of a reporter who had done work for a number of publications over 20 years about UFO phenomenon, and she brought it to the New York Times, and with a team of other reporters, broke this story in December 2017, which became a cultural inflection point.
Wow.
And my reporting seems to have uncovered that basically a widespread fascination with the idea that the government was interested in UFOs prompted the government to become more seriously interested in UFOs.
Oh my goodness. So Gideon, I can't keep my eyes off the video. I mean, what were you thinking when you saw these images for the first time?
Well, the videos are sort of hard to parse. I mean, there are a lot of people who have made pretty persuasive arguments that what's being seen in these videos are just balloons or planes or drones or other normal mundane terrestrial phenomenon. It's very hard to evaluate them outside of a lot of additional evidence that people at the government claim to have, classified evidence from sensor data, satellite data. So it's really hard to say anything all that definitive based on these videos alone.
I don't know, those little things dropping down to the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want you to listen to what the former head of national intelligence had to say about UFOs recently.
There are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that, frankly, engage in actions that are difficult to explain.
So what can we expect from this federal report on UFOs? Now I saw your expression. I mean, should the public expect confirmation of UFOs or an admission from the government? I mean, what's potentially next here?
Well, I mean, certainly there's this big basic question of what even are UFOs? And of course, the government looks at it from a very strict agnostic position, these are simply unidentified things in our airspace. Now, what everyone has told me is that we really shouldn't expect all that much from this report. Certainly is not going to be any evidence that we've been in touch with some galactic committee for decades. It's possible there's almost certainly going to be a classified annex to this report that might contain more information. But what's interesting about those comments from former Director Ratcliffe is that I had heard through some of my sources that there were people in the NRO who were very unhappy with the fact that he went on Fox News and he talked about things like satellite data, that a lot of those methods are protected for good national security reasons. And so, it's not clear what to expect.